Gary Hess, News Radio, WRVA, the voice of Virginia.
Coffee's hot and 995's humming. Short pumps moving and the rush is coming. Grab your keys, hit the road. Let's ride. Rich has the news for the drive outside. Wake up with Rich and win the day. Don't spend your morning playing catch up. WRVA and the city's alive. 7 a.m. It's go time, Richmond.
All right, good morning, everybody. It's 7:04 here on Richmond's Morning News. It's News Radio WRVA. It's Wednesday, July 1st. All right, I do want to bring up something on the program. If I ever had a Hall of Fame or a wall of recognition of great Americans, the one great American that I would pick right now in this day and age as we get ready to celebrate 250. Dave, do you know who I think one of the greatest Americans are right now? If we had a current Mount Rushmore, who I think I'd nominate to put on there?
No, who?
Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines, the NCAA swimmer, University of Kentucky. I think she could be one of the great Americans in living today. And I don't say that tongue-in-cheek. It's not poking fun. I sincerely believe that Riley Gaines is one of the great Americans. And Riley Gaines will go down in history as a wonderful American who stood up for American principles and freedom, not because of her swimming, but because of what she did after her swimming career. And that's where I want to start right now on Richmond's Morning News. So Riley Gaines was a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. Riley Gaines competed against an athlete named Leah Thomas. Leah Thomas was a transgender man that swam for the University of Pennsylvania, was an okay swimmer in the men's ranks, didn't really win anything, went to the women's ranks and dominated. And Riley Gaines stood up and said, wait a minute, women's sports are for women. Women's sports are for women. And she stood up and she said, no. And she said, I will not stand for this political correctness, and I will not stand for the DEI, and I will not stand for this. And Riley Gaines put herself out there on an island by herself and stood up for her principles. And that's why I think she is a tremendous American that we should all salute and look up to. Why? Because she remembered her voice matters. That's the one thing that I keep telling people left and right. And I need to give you examples so you understand your voice matters. See, Riley Gaines was not a politician. Riley Gaines was not a national name. Riley Gaines didn't have a huge platform. Riley Gaines simply stood up and spoke out and made her voice known. You know, they always say that speak truth to power. Well, she really did. And what happened to Riley Gaines? She was vilified. She was made fun of. She was marginalized. She was attacked. She was verbally attacked. She was physically attacked. She was speaking at San Francisco State University on men and women's sports. The crowd became so unruly, they chased her down the hallway, and she had to barricade herself for hours in a classroom to keep the angry mob from getting to her, physically assaulting her. Did she back down? No. Did she turn her cheek and run the other way? No. She stood there and stood her ground while people called her all kinds of filthy, horrible, awful names, while people marginalized, while people beat her up try to beat her up physically, emotionally. The words, the way that they came at her, and she stood her ground. And the more she stood up, the more people said, you know what, Riley, I agree with you. I'm going to go right there with you. I'm going to speak up. Her teammates, other women that stood up and said, wait a minute, this is wrong. You're putting us at a disadvantage in a lot of ways. You're putting us in physical harm's way when you have someone who is a biological male, a transgender athlete that's so much bigger, faster, stronger than I am, stronger muscles, bigger physique, more weight. When you put them in competition with girls, bad things can happen. And then San Jose State said, you know what? Their volleyball team had a bunch of players that said, wait a minute, no, we don't want to do this. They only did it because Riley Gaines gave them the courage to do that. And Riley Gaines has stood up for women's sports in Title IX throughout this country. She's become a speaker. She's become an advocate. She's become a household name. And yesterday, she showed each and every one of us that our individual voices matter, because the Supreme Court of the United States took up a case that ruled that there is a difference between men and women when it comes to sports in Title IX, and that would have never started. That would have never gotten to the justices It never would have gone to the Supreme Court of the United States, I sincerely believe, if it were not for Riley Gaines. So, Riley Gaines, I'm giving you an applause, and I'm going to tell you, you're an example for all of us. We keep forgetting our voice matters. Riley Gaines didn't have a podcast when she started this. She didn't have a radio show. She wasn't on TV. She was just one individual swimmer who said, wait a minute, this isn't right. And she stood her ground. She stood up for what she believed in. And that's one of the things that's great about being an American. And we keep forgetting that because the media tells us all the time that our voices don't matter. Her voices matter. Your voice matters. And she proved it to all of us yesterday that you can stand up and say something. You can push up against the mob. You can stand up and make your voice heard, and your voice matters, and your vote counts. So, Riley Gaines, I salute you completely today for what you did. So here's what happened at the Supreme Court yesterday. If you're a conservative, there's some stuff you love, and there's some stuff you didn't like. And if you're a liberal, there's some stuff that you loved, and there was some stuff that you didn't like. And if you're American, you can be prepared that we're going to see even more campaign ads coming as they've unleashed more campaign ad coordination between PACs and these people and that people and candidates. We're going to see just completely, you're going to see more ads than you've ever seen in your entire life, TV, radio, and in social media. You've just blown up the dam that kept us from being overwhelmed 100% with ads all the time. But let's get to the two things that I want to bring up, because that's the two cases that everybody's talking about. SCOTUS ruled that birthright citizenship is a right that you have. If you're born in this country, you're an American citizen. Part of the challenge of this experiment that we call America is people can use our own freedoms against us. Remember, we're the first country that said we're going to tell the government what they can't do. We're going to make sure the government's limited in what they can do. But when you open up that Pandora's box, there are people that will use our own freedoms against us, whether it's birthright tourism or people coming in here illegally and having anchor babies that let them immigrate to the United States in a way that is not prescribed by the Constitution of the government. I guess that's the best way to put it, because it's all gray, it's all murky, it's all cloudy. And it's interesting because when I first started hearing about birthright citizenship, I thought, well, what makes an American? I'm an American because I was born here. My grandparents are Americans because they got their citizenship papers. But when do we start pulling back who can be an American and who can't be? I think it's rather interesting. Think about this, folks. Think about this. I want you to think about this. If you move to the United States of America and you come here legally and you take your citizenship papers and test and you pass and you're at Monticello this weekend, or you're at Mount Vernon this weekend when they have the naturalization ceremony and you swear your allegiance to the United States of America, you are an American. You are an American. If you're born here, you are an American. What if I want to leave the United States of America? And let's say I move to Paris. Let's say I got a job working at Paris Euro Disney, and I moved to Paris for the next 20 years. And I did everything and got that citizenship in Paris, France. Would that make me French? No, I'd still be American. You see, I can move to England and I could live there for 20 years, but I wouldn't be English. I could move to Australia and I could live there for 50 years and I wouldn't be Australian. I don't think I'd be considered Japanese if I moved there and lived there for 15 years and followed all their rules and their customs and got my paper to be there legally. I'd never be Argentinian, but I can come here and in a very short time, I can become an American. That's what's very unique about America, because we are that great melting pot of people from around the world that's come here for freedom and a better way of life and opportunities. And that's why this birthright citizenship is so tricky, because you have people that are gaming the system. I started reading about this in the longest time ago in the Los Angeles Times about the tourism industry for expectant mothers, that they would have hotels and apartment buildings that were more like stables with women that were eight and a half months pregnant, just sitting there waiting to have their babies in the United States of America, get their citizenship, and then they go back to wherever they came from. A lot of them came from China, and they wanted that birthright citizenship. It was tourism. They came here as a tourist specifically to have their baby on U.S. soil. That's gaming the system. Coming across the border and having your baby in the United States on purpose is gaming the system. I know there were a lot of people that were mad about this on both sides. I don't think it's the Supreme Court's place to decide that. I think they interpret the laws. I'm glad they didn't make a law. And I know that Clarence Thomas and Alito had some great opinions. But I'm going to tell you this.
A+ roofing.
I think it's time for the Congress to start doing their job and to stop having everything ruled by executive orders. I think this is time for Mike Johnson and Congress to take this up and create a bill to make sure that we protect the sanctity of having U.S. citizens born here and naturalized here, and having that right and that privilege of being a citizen, and not being taken advantage of people that will come here as tourists or use it to get entry into the system, into the United States, that haven't done it the right way. Congress, it's not the Supreme Court's job to do this. It's your job to do this, because this is something that is something new in the last 30 years, and you need to react. I want to know what you guys think. Number for you to join us, 833-804-1140, 833-804-1140, the number for you to join us here on Richmond's Morning News. All right, I keep warning everybody, if you're a homeowner, listen, if you want to put this off, you do so at your own peril, because you've been forewarned. The price of supplies when it comes to re-roofing your home is going through the roof. 20, 30%, you're going to see a jump